Hello there Tenno, and welcome back to another Frame of Lore video. In today's episode, we are going to be going over the new war. There will be heavy spoilers for the new war questline, so if you are yet to play that part of the story and want to go in completely blind, consider yourselves warned. With that said, let's get into today's video. So the sentient invasion has truly begun, led by Natar, who is seemingly enthralled to Ballas and her brother Era. The Tenno form an unlikely alliance between the Grineer and Corpus to try and fight back against this threat. On the surface of Earth, in the plains of Eidolon, Carl 175 and his Grineer brothers do their best to fend off the invaders as a sentient Murex crashes into the Unum's tower. Carl does all he can to help his brothers during the fight, though it seems all is lost. He looks to the sentient Condrix and asks what the mission is, only for Vahek to tell him there is no mission. Carl approaches the Condrix, fighting sentience as he gets closer. He manages to fight them all off and drops his weapon as he reaches the base of the Condrix. He begins to arm a bomb, though halfway through its activation process, it halts, and Carl looks up to see Era approaching him. We then cut to Viso, a member of the Corpus, as the ship's alarms go off around him. Allard instructs Viso, whilst constantly getting his name wrong, to engage the ship's command overrides. Viso fights his way through the ship, battling against many of the Corpus's own robotics that have been taken over by the sentients. As he gets to the last command override, he hears Allard telling the crew to stand down, claiming to have negotiated with the sentients, likely to save his own skin. Viso knows Allard plans to betray the Corpus board of directors, so instead he reactivates the fire controls and orders it to blast the heart of the enemy ship, destroying it, though the resulting shockwave tore the Corpus ship apart. The Tenno arrive, as this happens, in their railjack, ready to take on the sentient fleet. Teshin tells them he will go ahead into the mothership to disable the Orphix fields, which will allow them to use their Warframes once inside. Once inside the mothership, Teshin discovers captured Grineer and Corpus, though keeps pushing ahead. He advises the Tenno to stay back, whilst he scouts further into the ship. We then see Teshin engaging in a duel with Era, as he has a veil on his head that is impairing his mind. Ballas reveals his plans to use the veil to brainwash the masses and end the war. Teshin collapses, but manages to remove the veil as Era grabs him and crushes his helmet. The operator arrives too late and looks on in horror as Ballas steps aside, revealing Natar looking injured. Ballas proceeds to kiss her and seemingly drains her life. As a void portal suddenly opens behind her to pull her in, the operator and their Warframe try to hold her back and save her, though Ballas steals the paracesis from the Tenno and cuts off the Lotus's arm, casting her into the portal. As the Tenno is shocked by this, Ballas stabs them through the back, casting them into the void as well. The next we see of Ballas, he is sat on a throne. With the Tenno banished, the sentients have won, and Ballas is now the new sovereign of the system as the head of the Narma faction. He twists history as much as he can to defame the Tenno and make himself look better. As he reigns, we see a mysterious figure land on Earth and move to take out a Narma base. Once inside the base, they discover more of the veils that are used to corrupt and control people. They try to save a newly veiled Ostron, but they are unable to remove the mask as an Archon is summoned. As they escape, we see that Archon appears to be a Mag Prime, but with a serpentine head. Once safely back at camp, the mysterious figure is revealed to be the Drifter, an older/alternate version of our operator. The Drifter meets with Ordis, who's been tending to the Lotus, in more of an Eidolon form. The Drifter believes they know someone who could help, though they would need a Corpus ship to navigate the system easier. They then head for Fortuna on Venus. As the Drifter descends into Fortuna, we see a similar scene to the first time we enter, though instead of an uplifting song about lifting together, we now have a corrupted and tainted version as they praise Ballas. The Drifter manages to sneak through the corrupted Fortuna, and they are contacted by Little Duck, who instructs them to take a K-drive to the spaceport, though they'd have to wear a veil to bypass security. The Drifter puts on the veil and struggles with distorted visions that attempt to twist their mind and say that Ballas was their father figure and the Lotus was the manipulator. They still manage to sneak inside and eventually cannot take the visions anymore, so rip the mask from their face and proceed to destroy the facility that makes these veils and escape in a Corpus ship. The Drifter then heads to Uranus, As they move into the base they arrived at, they are accosted by disciple Karnateru's forces, though are quickly aided by the Stalker. It seems the Nama forces here have been hunting the Stalker, though they have clearly been failing. You can find the body of the disciple impaled to a wall, as she was the last to be killed. The Stalker then brings the Drifter to Hunhao. They agree they would both like to see the Lotus restored, and Hunhao agrees to help the Drifter. He explains to them that the Archons have powers, and each Archon can raise dead sentients, which could be used to help the Lotus. As the Drifter leaves, Hunhao bestows them with a sentient bow, which they use to fight their way back out of the base. The scene then cuts to the Zariman 10-0, where we see a classroom, and Cephalon Melika instructing the class. For some reason, our character seems confused at being there, and is slow to respond. The class is studying temporal axioms of void travel, narrated by Eularia and Trati. The player must then answer questions on their tablet, though is not punished for wrong answers. When the final answer is given, the class interrupted by the Zariman commencing its void jump. We then snap back to the present, where the Drifter must hunt down the Archons to try and restore the Lotus. You are given the choice in which order you wish to do it, though it doesn't matter which one you choose to do first. During the missions with the Archons, Era will talk to Hunhao and refuses to believe when Hunhao claims he's being used by Ballas. Era swears they will find Natar and bring her back. Once the first Archon is defeated and its shard has been claimed, the Drifter returns it to the camp and brings it to the Lotus, which partially restores her body. She demands more and suddenly snaps at the Drifter. We are then shown the Zariman again. This time, the children have barricaded themselves in a classroom, as all the adults outside have become crazed and deranged. The operator moves around the room and talks to the children, trying to comfort them. As they get to the back of the room, they see one tapping on the wall. The operator offers them their light. As the child turns around, it is revealed to be the man in the wall, taking on our form. Upon defeating the second Archon and returning their shard to the Lotus, she suddenly turns hostile after not recognizing the Drifter, and attacks. The Drifter is now forced to evade her attacks. Eventually, they are cornered, and Ordis blocks the attack using his sentinel body. We then see the operator accepting the man in the wall's deal, granting them void powers, which seem also to pass on to the Drifter. The Drifter then uses a void beam to defend against the Lotus' attack. Upon seeing the operator take the place of the Drifter, the Lotus departs. Ballas now senses that the Tenno have returned, and is furious. He instructs Era to recall the sentient fleet, as Natar will come to them, and he will command her to kill the Tenno. Meanwhile, the operator heads to the Zariman 10-0, which has seemingly come halfway out of the void. The operator follows the whistling they hear to a dormer zone, where they are greeted by the Drifter, who explains they're an alternate version of them. They do not explain how they managed to leave the void, or how they recovered the Lotus's body, however. They explain how the paradox only allows for one of them to exist in normal space, and the player must then choose which one they will take to face Ballas. The choice here is purely cosmetic, and after the quest you can freely switch between the two anyways. The Tenno, regardless of who they picked, will wake up in the Orbiter, with Ordis and their Warframes back at their disposal. They then discover, through the Lotus's helmet, that she is heading to Cetus to steal a Murex. The Tenno follow her to Cetus, though an Orphix field cuts them off from their Warframe. They sneak in and manage to rescue many of the villagers there from the Veils. With the help of Konzu, they take a blimp to the Tower of the Unum, and once again have control of their Warframe. The Tenno manages to scale the tower and get aboard the Murex in time, just before it leaves. Once aboard, the Lotus claims that this is not their fight, and explains that Ballas plans to use the sentient mothership Pregasa to consume the sun of the Origin system, which would fulfill its purpose from the old war. The Lotus then attacks the Tenno and forces them off the ship. Luckily, Cephalon Psi comes in with their railjack to pick them up. The Tenno manages to bring their railjack in by the sun, and Ballas explains that he will use the ship to destroy the sun and sacrifice his Nama Empire so he can escape to the Tau system. He is interrupted by the Lotus, who rams a Murex ship into the Pregasa. The Tenno then manages to get close enough to launch their necromech into the capital ship. As the Tenno fights through the ship, they are met by Error, who explains he has realised too late that Ballas's plans also doom the sentients, so he wants to help the Tenno reach him. He leads them through the ship and stops a collapsing section from crushing them. As they pass through, he is seemingly crushed, leaving the Tenno to fight the third Archon, though now they have their Warframe. Once the last Archon is defeated, the Tenno take their shard and continue to Ballas. The Lotus now approaches Ballas, who demands that she kneel and beg before him. Though the Tenno also arrive, which distracts the Lotus. Ballas takes that opportunity to strike, causing the Tenno to push the Lotus out of the way and take the hit. This makes them drop the Archon shard. Ballas absorbs it and uses its power to take control of the Lotus and turns her against the Tenno. The fight rages until the Tenno manages to stop Ballas's control of the Lotus, and she goes on to attack Ballas before collapsing. Ballas then turns his attention to the Tenno, causing another battle to erupt. Ballas manages to knock the Tenno aside and takes their paracesis, using it to stab the Lotus. As Ballas seemingly has the upper hand, the Tenno jumps on him from behind, attaching a veil to his face from one of his fallen guards. In this delusional state, instead of the Lotus, he sees Margulis. The Lotus then kisses him and reclaims her essence, and ends Ballas once and for all. Though this victory is cut short, as the man in the wall appears, in the form of a large multi-armed and multi-legged humanoid embedded into a wall. It appears to attack the Lotus, before disappearing entirely. With the fight done, the Tenno carry the Lotus back to the chamber on Lua, where she claims that she saw nothing when the man in the wall appeared. She also states that the Nama faction now have a martyr as a leader, and are shattered, though still out there. She is also struggling to balance the personalities within herself, where the Tenno says to choose one, who will lead the others. This prompts the choice to choose Margulis, Natar, or the Lotus. Cosmetically, the choices don't matter, though the choice you pick will be the permanent name for her. You can change her appearance later on. With that all said and done, the new war has ended. Ballas has been defeated, and the origin system can start to heal, though the scars of the invasion still linger. If the Tenno is to visit Cetus or Fortuna, you can still see the damage left there. Though, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this look at the new war and what it did to the origin system. If you did enjoy this, please leave a like and consider subscribing, as it really does help out the channel, though just the fact you watched already means a lot to me. Next week's video will be a little bit different, as I won't be focusing so much on the lore, more as looking to future updates. But with all that said, stay safe out there, Tenno, and I'll see you all in the next one.